Surillo. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast today, Sam.
Thanks, Victoria. I appreciate it.
Just a little bit about Sam's background. She's the managing director and executive coach at Courtex Performance, a leading organization in the mental performance space in sports, business, and beyond. Sam is in charge of Courtex's strategy and business operations and provides executive, leadership, and professional coaching services to select clients around the world. Additionally, Sam provides mentorship program development as well as business operation consulting services to global organizations, which has helped her understand the mental game within and outside of business settings and various cultural settings. Sam holds an executive coaching certificate and a Master of Science in Talent and Organizational Development from Queen's University of Charlotte, a Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology from the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee, and is a certified facilitator of the Actualized Leader Profile and Performance Cycle. Sam's an accomplished coach, consultant, and organizational development practitioner and is passionate about mental performance, organizational effectiveness, job crafting, and helping others achieve success. Thank you so much for being here today. You have so much wisdom to bring to our audience.
Thanks, Victoria. I appreciate it. And I need to shorten that bio.
We have different bios for different purposes. I have like my three sentence one, and I have my 2-page one. So I know how it is when it comes to bios. But I think all those were definitely accolades worth sharing. So the topic today is mindful coaching, and my burning question is, what makes mindful coaching different than just regular professional business mentoring type coaching?
Yeah. So for me, mindful coaching means getting a little bit more touch with your client and being more mindful, I guess, in whatever, like everything that they're dealing with for their identity, as well as the ecosystem that they're operating in, and just being mindful of those different complex factors in their life. And really focusing on what is it that the client needs and what do you need to be mindful about in your coaching, rather than taking any specific type of coaching like solution focused or leadership focused coaching. Just taking all of the different facets of the person's life and making sure that you're going with the client where they need to go and helping them to become more mindful and self-aware.
That applies so much to my forthcoming book called Act Like an Ally, Work with an Ally. And it's actually 2 books in one. And one is for the ally and how to be a better ally. But the other book is for what I call the partner. So the person who benefits from allyship, that recipient of allyship. And in the partner side of the book, I have a whole chapter dedicated to how partners need to both be coachable by the ally, but they also need to be good coaches as well. And I think about this coachability aspect in my big message with the ally throughout the book is like, you need to do what your partner needs. Like, we don't need champion allies and savior allies who like go and do whatever they think is best. The best thing to do is for what the partner needs and what the partner's like desires are, what the partner's perspective is. And so I think that matches really nicely with what I'm trying to accomplish with my allyship work. What do you see as like good behaviors for both the coach of mindful coaching, but also the coachee, the participant in mindful coaching?
Yeah, so some good behaviors could be that they're showing active listening. So right now I can tell that you're active listening, like with me, like you're making eye contact with the camera and just showing that you're present. So that's one good behavior. And I know that maybe that seems a little bit odd to name first when you're not actually engaging, but that is a really important engagement skill and behavior for mindful coaching. I would say asking questions that are very related to what the person is struggling with or interested in. So being really perceptive and making sure that you're asking relevant questions that are impactful. Um, and from a genuine state of curiosity rather than like an interrogation or for your own selfish desires to know. Sometimes it can be really tempting to ask questions to know something for your own knowledge of operating around the person. But with mindful coaching, you want to make sure that you're asking questions that are specific to the person who is looking for a solution or looking for more self discovery. And I think those are two really important behaviors that can show up on either the ally side or the partner.
I love that. And then whenever you're, so say you and I were in a coaching relationship and you were my coach and I was the, is it coachee or prodigy? What
Yeah,
word do
I
you
would say
use?
coachy, coachy.
Coachee. Okay. So like you're the coach, I'm the coachee. Like what type of behaviors do I need to exhibit to be a good coachee? Because I feel like that part of the conversation doesn't really happen as much as what the coach does, right?
Hmm. Yeah, so I think the coachee needs to be willing to be a little bit uncomfortable with a pause.
Mm.
Sometimes we, as humans, are very reactive. And when somebody asks us a question or puts us on a spot, we're tempted to respond right away. And as a coachee, it's important to honor that time and space and to sit with the question or the thought. Um, so being a little bit patient as a coachee with yourself is a really important thing to keep front and center, and willingness to receive feedback. So being malleable and open and receptive to growth, and um, probably being unaware of what those growth points are and giving yourself some grace for being courageous enough to be open for feedback, but two, if you do discover and when you discover something that you need to grow in, giving yourself some space and grace.
Oh, I love that. And I have a whole chapter on grace in my book as well. So you're just like plugging my book for me. You don't even know it. I did
Well,
pull from the coaching literature to try to give allies and partners some good tools and strategies. And I have a whole chapter on grace and how I don't talk as much about the partner giving themselves the grace as giving their ally the grace, because the ally is going to mess up from time to time, but we can't be in this cancel culture. We can't get stuck, right? We need to have, as you said, time and grace to work through the challenging issues so we can grow and get better as a result. So tell me a little more about your work. I know you both work at Courtex, but you also have your own consulting practice working with clients as well. Or tell us how do you integrate mindful coaching into your work?
yeah, that's a great question. So I work for Courtex Performance full time. In my role, I coach select clients in the executive space. We're typically, well, our roots are in basketball and in sports in general. So we work with a lot of professional sports teams and organizations that are parallel with sports teams. So like agencies, agents for sport marketing firms as well. And I'll typically coach the individuals in the leadership office or the high potential talent. And our team will come in and we do a full organizational consulting role. So we might have somebody start at the top, myself, who will coach the leadership. Maybe we'll run a culture organization assessment, and then we'll have coaches come in and coach team members or run team development workshops. So a lot of my work with the leadership teams will incorporate mindful coaching, where I'm helping them get a little bit more familiar with maybe their team environment by applying mindful coaching themselves, getting a little bit more familiar with what their leadership style is, and how to be mindful humans in general in the workplace, on and off the court, is what we typically say at Cortex.
I should have started this conversation with the question I'm about to ask, but how do you define mindfulness?
Mhm. That's a great question. For me, I would say mindfulness is being with the present moment just as, just being with it.
I love how simplistic that is because, especially in our culture where we are always on our phones, we have multiple tabs open, we're always multitasking. I like what kills me. I used to work at this fancy restaurant on the 30th floor of a skyscraper in Portland, Oregon, and everyone would always request the window seats because you're like looking down on Portland and seeing the views, and it's gorgeous. And I remember there was one night, and I was walking around, and every single one of my tables had at least two people at each table, and they were all on their phone. And I'm like, you were in this gorgeous setting. You're in the company of probably your partner or a close friend or colleague or whatever, and you're on your damn phones. Like, how is this enjoying the experience? And I feel like just being, as you said, present with the moment, it's so important yet so devalued in our society right now.
Right, right, I agree. Yeah, it's interesting, I'm sure you're familiar with Gottman, yeah, and, like, how they talk about bids in, like, romantic relationships.
Mm-hmm.
But, I
Mm-hmm.
think that extends to all relationships in our lives, like, bids for people's attention and connection, and, like, you're talking
Yes.
about, like, at the restaurant or at restaurants in general or in public, when people maybe on their phones, they're missing bids for relationships or connections, even from strangers. Like, I feel like, I don't know if you've ever traveled solo, but whenever I travel solo, I love it so much because there's so many opportunities to connect with new people that you never would have met otherwise. And in order to do that, you have to be off your phone because you may not notice that they're giving you a bid for a connection point. And
Mm.
um, being mindful of how drastic of a change or how big of an impact such a little thing can have on your life is so important for like quality of life and for your overall mental performance and well-being. I think a lot of people, myself included, we scroll on our phones and it sucks our energy. And I was just thinking this yesterday of like, what is my battery life and like, what am I dedicating my energy to? What's like recharging it. And I was scrolling on my phone, as I sometimes do mindlessly to take a mental break, but it's the opposite. It really like pulls more of your energy. It really doesn't give you that mental break. But anyways, this is all going back to the mindfulness topic of, how important, small changes are to being more present, and how simplistic, going back to the statement of how simplistic of a definition I attributed to it. Being just being sounds really simple, but it's so difficult. It's so difficult.
Yeah.
And that's why it's really
So,
important to work with somebody around that.
yes, absolutely. And it's something else I think about with coaching related to allyship. So, do you know, have you ever heard about innovation called like big I innovation, little I innovation?
No, I'm not familiar.
Okay, so big I innovation is like the iPhone or the first car ever built, right? Like it's like a big new creative thing that now exists because it's big I innovation. Whereas little I innovation is like, I'm going to take a different route to work this morning to shave 3 minutes off of my drive time. I'm going to, install something on my computer to help keep me focused so I don't feel distracted, whenever I'm trying to do heads down work. So like the little changes that we make, these little innovations we make in our life. And I talk about the same way about allyship. There's like big A allyship, which is like, I'm going to be an upstander. I'm going to like jump in when I hear bias and I'm going to put my name on the line for someone else, or there's little A allyship where it's like, I'm going to use my pronouns so to make space for others, or I'm going to make sure I get someone's name pronounced correctly. So how I did before we got on the call today with your last name. So Do you see coaching taking that similar big C, little c coaching, whereas big C coaching is like getting a formal coach, having formal sessions, having a formal coaching program, but like little c coaching being more of these smaller behavior changes and awarenesses that we can have throughout our working experience?
Yeah, I think that super well. Big C coaching, I would say big C coaching is also the goals that people have when they come into the coaching engagement. And then the little C coaching, like the, weekly sessions or however frequently we may meet with clients, working through the everyday challenges that come up, but also making strides towards that bigger goal that you came in with. So I love that you talk about that in your book with allyship of, sometimes I think people want to make change and help, and they may perceive that as only occurring in big A or big C ways. But it's really what the micro affects the macro. Those little A's or the little C's really build up to make a bigger impact.
I love it. And then for those watching this episode who are in HR roles, people leader roles, just wanting to make the workplace a better place for humans, what would be 3 pointers you would give when it comes to mindful coaching in the workplace?
So I would say the first one is to practice active listening. Nobody will notice that you're practicing it unless they are also active listening. In return, they're reading your body language. Maybe they might feel more connected. But there's no harm in trying active listening. It's a safe skill to practice that'll contribute to you feeling like a better human and operating like a better human at work. The second thing I would say around mindful coaching is to get curious. So get curious about your coworkers, get curious about people in your life, get curious about strangers that you may run into, and in a way that can show up as mindful coaching others. Just asking questions. That's what coaching is: asking questions and providing a space. So get curious and get comfortable with that, because it can be a lot of fun. The third pointer I would give is to ask for feedback. When you ask
Mm.
for feedback, you might not like what you hear, or maybe the first couple of times the person gives you feedback, they might not feel comfortable. But asking for feedback can be really helpful in contributing to you becoming more mindful and then being able to apply that mindful coaching to others in a way that maybe it's more receptive if you're asking for feedback along the way.
I love that. So, active feedback, active listening, being comfortable with asking for feedback. And what was the second one? The first and last one
Oh,
were so good.
getting
Getting
curious.
curious, getting curious, active listening, getting curious, and asking for feedback and being comfortable with receiving that feedback. Sam, this has been so wonderful. Thank you for taking time today to teach us about mindful coaching. For those who want to get in touch with you, what's the best way they can reach out?
They can go to Courtex Performance, Courtex Performance.com. I'm not going to spell the whole thing, but yeah, you can reach out at Courtex Performance. And this was a lot of fun. Thank you so much, Victoria.
And thank you for all you do to help us be better humans.